Ah, okay. Can we open it to questions, please? Yeah, yeah, questions?
Thank you so much. Hello? Well, the thing is, very interesting territory that we've got into. One, of course, about the gay marriage. And it's interesting because I work at Hello Magazine, which is a sort of a mirror to high society, shenanigans. And I have repeatedly proposed a story on happily betrothed gay men because they seem to have the happiest association. And one that's going on for decades, like Abu Sandeep, Wendell Rodrigues, and Jerome. It's endless in the fashion business. And everyone's response to that is, we are a family magazine. We don't talk about things like this. But it has very long fascinated me that heterosexual marriage is crumbling, and it's almost ashes to ashes and dust to dust for whatever reason. Infidelity, I think, is a key player. The other is a lot of Marwari boys get married for the wrong reasons, and then they want to have fun outside. So it's a very mixed game. It's not a very clear-cut journey. It's not a spiritual journey, at least not so much in traditional society. Whereas in the West, there is much more idealism before you actually put a ring on someone's finger. And I think they have a notion of serial monogamy, which is when I'm with you, I'm with you. Okay, I'm not this rich man who's going to sleep with everybody and not tell you. But when I'm not with you, I'm also not with you. So it's much, much more simple and clear and less hypocritical. So my question to you really would be that maybe perhaps we're at a point in human history where the egalitarian equation between man and woman is going to change the way marriages are even conceived of. Forget the elephant, forget the external trimmings, the pujas, the prayers, the money, the financial side of it. Just the spiritual element of marriage is so much now. It's crying for that to come in.
Who would you like? Who would like to answer that?
I just quickly, so in the US, it's become a political issue, right? The candidates have to speak about, presidential candidates have to actually say where they stand on the issue of gay marriage. And so the conservative side basically opposes gay marriage, saying that it's eroding the institution of marriage. And a lot of us felt like, no, actually, I am eroding the institution of marriage. Heterosexuals are actually eroding the institution of marriage. If you want any future to marriage, let gay people get married, because they seem to be doing a far better job of having long-term relationships. It's not to stereotype that either, but this notion of marriage, it really is imploding on itself. And I think if we have these, again, going back to if we have all these alternatives and people who want to get married, people who don't want to be married, be married, don't want to have kids, don't have. If we have all these things, there's more likelihood, again, like I said, of happiness and true fulfillment.
Yeah.
When we were talking about gay sex as a taboo, I was also wondering about live-in relationships leading to marriages. In India, especially, it was looked at as a taboo, and now it's slightly picking up. So, could live-in relations be like a litmus test that lead to a successful marriage, or does marriage require another criteria altogether?
I think live-in relationships do aid marriage a lot. Most of the happily married couples I know, who've not had arranged marriages, of course, they've lived in together, and I think, just the biggest problem that people who've had arranged marriage come up to me and speak about is having to share your loo with somebody else. And, having to share your bedroom with someone else, where you have like towels scattered around and you go mad when a wet towel is thrown on the bed. And, someone can't see what the problem with that is. I, for one, don't see what the problem with a wet towel on the bed is. And so it's
haven't been married.
No, I don't. I'm saying I throw wet towels on the bed, so it's probably my husband who's going to agonize over that. But yeah. So I think when you're living together, you deal with all the problems that you would when it comes to sharing space. Sharing families is the only thing which, because as live-in relationships are not, do not normally have the blessings of your family. So I think that's probably the only challenge which marriages after live-in relationships could face.
Yeah, hi. This whole discussion, I find, has been completely, you have been discussing it more from the Western point of view. You're talking about gay sex and all that. What I want to know is, and in fact, when you spoke about even what is that term you use? Polyamory.
Polyamory as opposed to having an amorous poly, which is totally a different thing.
Yeah. So what I want to know is, traditionally in India, if you look at even our epics, you have instances of both polygamy as well as polyandry. I don't think that was discussed at all. So could you please share,
I'll quickly say it. So just to correct you, I wasn't talking about gay sex. I have no idea what gay sex is like. I was talking about gay marriage, okay? There's a difference. And the other thing was, I do believe that in India, like I said, with the maid, the Kamwali Bai saying that I've, done this, there's a lot of really progressive things that have happened for a long time in India. And so much of this has been just happening with support of the community and all of that. And it's been written about as a very long heritage of diversity and acceptance and everything. And we've actually walked away from all of that, and we've shrunk our perceptions of what was good and what was valued in the past. So you're right, there's been so much of that has existed, and we've had the temples of Khajuraho. I mean, that is polyamory right there, right? So so I think that's existed, and this sort of middle class morality that we brought to all of it has kind of devastated that whole heritage.
I think it's also, because I work in the media, and what I, have realized is it's the educated people, who are bound by laws. It's becoming more and more complicated. And if you look at tribal societies, if you look at, other societies, primitive societies, they don't have any such problems. So maybe it's, this whole, the set of laws and all, which is just making things very complicated for the educated class. So I think we need to look at that as well.
They're much more evolved, what you're saying.
That's exactly what
I'm... Madhya Pradesh and places, of course, they also, you live with the person wants to find out whether you want to marry or not. They're far more evolved. We've gone backward. You're right. But that wasn't the topic of the session.
Hi. I've been going through this. I didn't find this panel discussion very enlightening, I would say, because the idea that's gone across to the masses is non-conformist, holding less allegiance to the institution of marriage. And so the youth today stands befuddled as could be unhappy, not sure of what they want, whether a live-in relationship is good enough or marriage is fine or the nuclear units are good now or the old system was fine. So I think somewhere we have lost the track. None of us is clear on the idea what is, with changing times, do we need to change the complete system, throw away the traditions, throw away the confirmed, So the views gone across are very, very non-conformist. I'm extremely sorry to say that. I'm extremely sorry because are we talking of marriage which is good, or are we talking of outside marriage which may or may not be good? Thank you.
Yeah. Any more? Do you have a question? Just a comment, or do you have a question to ask?
I can address what you're saying. I think basically what you're saying is that, is it going to implode the idea of a marriage? And I think what we've all been saying is that marriage is a good thing for those for whom it works, right? And I think so even when I was dying to get married at the age of 23, and my father actually had said to both us, our daughters and my sisters here, and my father's also here, he raised us saying, I am not raising you to get married. I'm raising you to have a career and to be independent. If marriage happens, then that should be incidental. And I thought that was really, so mean. I want to get married, and all my friends were getting married. So at the age of 23, I went and I got married, right? But I do believe that if I had waited, or, there's so many things. So, like I said, it's about fulfillment and happiness and whether you're going to be a good person. We've seen wonderful people, wonderful mothers, wonderful fathers within marriages. So it's not to sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater. Of course those things exist, and we value those. We love those. But there's also these other alternatives where love can happen, and love and compassion and kindness is what it's really all about.
Well, I would also say that it's impossible for anyone, for any panel to give you a solution as to what a marriage is about. I mean, there are so many people who come to me and say, so are you for arranged marriage or are you for love marriage? It's not a love versus arranged. It's not marriage versus not marriage. I think it's a personal choice. And I think the better idea is to explore the choices we have than to pass a blanket judgment on it.
I must say I've been very happy at what I've heard. I like the fact that we've explored a lot of things, right, and not really come away with one particular judgment. So I am what you called a marriage counselor. So I'm a clinical psychologist by profession, but I also do marriage counseling. So I would say safely I've been able to save about 30 to 40% marriages. But the issue that I really would want from whoever is willing to talk about it is children. We deal with so much guilt where divorce is concerned. Would anybody be willing to say, does a happy, stable family and marriage help children or doesn't? And how do we deal with guilt when divorce seems imminent or clearly when children are left without married parents? Does it play a role? Does it not play a role? Anyone?
I feel like I'm talking a lot, but I guess that on this panel I'm the best person to answer that question because I have had a child. And there's a tremendous amount of guilt among parents, as you must have witnessed, when you take the decision to split up a family, right? There is a tremendous amount of guilt. But I think part of that guilt also comes from the fact that you have only seen, marriages, like you've only seen the marital unit. Right? So then you feel like, no, this is a broken family. What the hell is a broken family? A broken family is if someone's head is broken, and you've seen that with domestic violence, right? So it's not a broken family. There is a different kind of family, which the United States had to tell me. You are a different kind of family. You're fine. Call yourself a family, which I thought was really touching, you know? And I didn't want to subject my kids to all of this. No one goes into marriage thinking that they're going to get divorced, right? So, but I truly believe that my child, I liked raising him as a single parent. His father has a big role in his life. His stepfather still has a role in his life. I still have a role in my stepdaughter's life. So I think finally it is about that. If I hate the fact that people stay married and the model they've given to their children is an awful marriage. So kids are growing up in these really bad marriages and seeing their fathers abuse their mothers or their mothers unhappy. Why do that to the world, you know? I feel like it's better to separate or to have a separate kind of relationship where the child is seeing love all the time, right? They're seeing good things. And of course, there's strife. I mean, I didn't want to be single, and it's very hard, especially in the US, to raise your child as a single parent. But I took that on because I felt that my child would be better off seeing people happy. And he's a feminist, and he's a very loving man. He's a young man now.
So any more questions? Yes, probably the last question for the day. I'm really sorry, my friend.
One young person recently said that marriage is a failed institution, like democracy. The problem is we don't see a viable alternative. Do you think living in is a good alternative?
I think that was addressed a little earlier on about...
I'm sorry, I might have missed it.
No, absolutely. But suffice to say, since time is short, that there are no guarantees that having lived in, that could lead to a happy marriage, or, it's just easier possibly to dissolve the relationship thereafter.
Get married. But marriage, living in as an alternative to marriage, which according to some young people is not working.
Well, now the courts as well have recognized the rights of live-in relationships. There are legal recourse available. So in terms of what marriage represents, in terms of the contract of marriage, certainly those lines are blurring between live-in and signing on the dotted line. So men and women are not absolved of the responsibilities of marriage just because they have chosen to cohabit and not sign on a dotted line or go around a fire or sign a nikhahnama.
Thank you. We're really running short of time, but we have a lady who wants to ask one last question if the panel is willing. We have to.
Thank you for this discussion. I just wanted to find out one thing that, and it struck me, that all four of you only talked about single marriages, one man, one woman. But within our own country, it's not just today, but we've had many, many instances and many, many, many hundred people who had more than one wife. And those marriages also work. There are also instances where women have had more than one man. And those have also worked. But, why are we so conventional when we sit on a forum and talk about marriage and define it into these narrow confines?
So that is wonderful, because we spent 2.5 hours yesterday talking about polyandry and matriarchal societies, matrilineal, all of that. So given that we had this discussion internally, we apologize. We forgot to talk about it, and time is short, but very much so, and it was
We'll
very
give
much
you our notes.
And secondly, when we talk about infidelity, the notion of infidelity is actually very Catholic. It wasn't part of our cultural being for many, many, many years. And does infidelity really break a marriage? Or, especially in the context that when a lot of marriages are seen as a social contract. Girls and boys are raised for that one day where the boy will sit on a horse and the girl will wear her red lehenga. And then they'll be in happily ever after. And it's only when maybe 1 month down the line, or maybe 2 months, or maybe 2 days down the line, they say, hey, wait a minute. There is no happily ever after, but this is going to be a lot of hard work. And within that hard work, you slowly get yourself